Hi everyone, welcome to the LEAP initiative where we teach DevOps engineering and Kafka administration. This is the LEAP initiative playground which we have created specifically for our classes as a practice tool for us to create servers and create tools that we need for our classes. Today we are going to be learning essential Linux commands. We are going to be learning Linux commands that are essential to the day-to-day activity of a DevOps engineer and a Kafka admin. Now, what is Linux and why do we need to learn Linux commands? Linux commands is essential to know how to operate a Linux server. And what is a Linux server? A Linux server is where we deploy an application that we create. So after creating an application, we deploy it into a server before we can make it public to users to be able to access our application. A DevOps engineer needs basic knowledge on how to operate a server, navigate a server, and do certain operations on a server to be able to install dependency where there is need to install dependencies, to be able to maybe create a file, write into a file, save the file, maybe create a folder and put a file into a folder, or delete dependencies or delete files. For a Kafka admin, traditionally, if you want to create Kafka, set up a Kafka cluster on multiple servers, like having the broker run on multiple servers, then you need a basic knowledge on Linux commands to be able to install the binaries that Kafka needs when you download the binary, write into the configuration file, save it, and then run the commands, the appropriate commands to be able to spin up that service. So let me show what a server looks like, and then we'll go into seeing what the actual terminal looks like. So a server looks something like this, which are owned by some cloud providers like Amazon, AWS, GCP, which is Google Cloud, and then we have Azure, Microsoft Azure, which provides servers like this. So what we do in the organization is, in a typical organization, you would rent one or two of these servers, and then we have to log into the servers and make those operations. So the server terminal does not look like the computer. So the server terminal does not look like our traditional laptop and computer that we have, where I can see things, I can click, I can do whatever I want to do. In the server, when you log into it, it's like just a blank black space, and to do anything you need to write certain commands to be able to do certain things. Like if you want to create a file, how I could traditionally create a folder, for example, I could just log into my laptop and then create a folder just by right clicking, right? But in the terminal, you are not able to do that. Let me show an example here. For example, I just want to create. Okay, so now if I wanted to create a folder, I could right click, new folder, and I can call it test folder. It has been created, right? But in the case of the terminal, the Linux terminal, you need to write a command. You need to write some form of commands to be able to create a folder if you wish to create a folder. So this is what the server looks like, and in our Leap Initiative, we have made it easy to be able to create these servers without really needing to go into the AWS and cloud service providers to actually rent those servers. So you can have a Linux terminal where you will learn the commands that are essential for you, so that when you get into the real work environment and the real servers, you already know the commands that you need to run to do what you want to do. So let's get right into it. Alright, so this is our Leap Initiative playground. It says, welcome to Leap Initiative. Spin up for free as many services as you desire. Click on quick tutorial videos on the right to learn, execute, automate, and perfect your tech skills. Right, so here are virtual machines. They are what we call the servers. So we are going to be creating a virtual machine. So we'll create an Ubuntu virtual machine to have that terminal where we can actually work with. So while you do take this course and use the Leap Initiative to spin up servers, you can also go onto YouTube and check for videos on creating EC2 instance on AWS account, AWS cloud, and then you can also see that what we have here is same thing as what you have in a server when you actually log into an actual server. So this is actually an actual server, but created through a technology called containerization to be able to give us that functionality, that ability to practice the Linux commands without having to rent and incur cost from those cloud service providers. So when you click on create, it has been created. So you would have to run this command on your code editor to be able to log into the server terminal. So here's my code editor. Paste in the command, and then you see we are now logged into the server terminal. So now we can begin the actual Linux commands. So first command we are going to look at is to know where you are in the server. How do you know where you are? So in the server, right, this is what it looks like. So this is all you would see. This is all you would see in the server. So I can bring up my terminal. So now here is my terminal. I can now log into the here is my terminal. I can now log into the server that I just created. Here's the command, and we are now logged into the server. So one of the first command we are going to be learning that is essential is for us to know where we are on the server terminal, because you don't have an ability to click and try to see where you are, right? So you only run commands to know where you are. So the command is pwd, which shows you where you are. Currently it shows slash, which means we are in the root directory. Now if you want to create a folder, first thing we'll learn is how to create a folder. So to create a folder is where you put files in there. You put files into a folder. For Linux, we call it directory. So we are going to be creating a directory. So the command is mkdir and then the directory name. So we can call it DevOps. This has now been created. Now this has been created. Another command that is essential is to see what you have actually created, or to see what are listed in the actual location that you're on. And we just saw that we are in the root directory. So now how do we see all the contents that are in that root directory? So we need to run a command called ls. This command lists the actual content of the directory. Now this is the actual content of the directory. We can see a folder called bin, folder called boot, folder called dev, and then this DevOps folder. This is the one we just created. So this is one of the essential commands. We can list it in a way that is much more clear to see. We can do ls, another command, ls-l. This shows it in a long list format instead of the horizontal format we saw earlier. So you see the file, and then it shows us more details like the owner of the file and if it's a directory or if it's a file. So now we can also run another command to actually see hidden directories or hidden files. So if you run this, you see that this .docker env that was not showing here is now showing, and we have this dot and we have this double dot. So these are hidden folders. Dot, any folder or any directory or any file that starts with dot in Linux, it automatically becomes a hidden folder or a hidden file. Meaning when you traditionally do your ls-l, you're not going to see them unless you do ls-la. That a that you add to the command allows you to be able to see hidden files. So I'm going to clear my terminal and then we look at other commands as well. So we created a folder called the DevOps folder, and what we can do is to try to create a file inside of that folder. So to create a file inside of that folder, you would need to go into that folder. Traditionally in Linux, you would need to go into that folder. So we will list again to see all the directories. So we want to go into this folder. So the command is cd, which stands for change directory. So we want to change directory into our DevOps folder. So we'll type the name of the folder in full and then we click enter, and you see this indicates to us that we are now in the DevOps folder. So we want to see what we have in the DevOps folder, which in this case we have nothing because we just created it and we've not created anything in there. So we do ls and we see that it is empty. We do ls-l and we see total 0, means there is nothing in this folder. So what do we want to do? In most cases, we can create a file inside of this folder, or we can move a file into this folder. We can move a file from another folder into this folder. We can copy a file from another folder into this folder. So we will go to the next command, which is to maybe navigate out of this folder. So how do you get out of this folder when you're already inside this folder? So you run cd ... So this takes you out of the folder and then you're back to the root directory. So when we ls again -l, we are gonna see those folders that are in this root directory. So this is how you navigate, and you go into a folder and then you come out of the folder. So now let's talk about creating a file. So we want to create a file, And for example, we want to create the file in this root directory. So what is the command to actually create a file? The command to create a file is touch and then the file name. We can say testfile.txt. We always have to give an extension for the file that we create. I'll clear the screen so that this is very clear. The commands are very clear to see. So touch testfile.txt. If you want to create a JSON file, the extension for the JSON file will be .json, which is JSON. So if you want to create a Python file, the extension will be .py. If you want to create a bash file, the extension will be .sh. So whatever file you want to create, you have to know the extension for such file. So in this example, we are just creating a normal text file. So the extension is .tst. So now it has been created. So when we list again to see what are in this root directory, then we see the file. We see it created testfile.txt. So this is how you're going to see it in the terminal. Shortly, we are going to learn how to write into the file, but for now, we just created the file. So what if we want to create the file in the DevOps folder? So what we do is we need to move into the DevOps folder, which is cd DevOps. We go into the DevOps folder and then we create a new file. So we can do touch testfile2.txt and then it has been created. So when we ls-l, now we see only one content is in this our folder now, which is the testfile2.txt. So this is how to navigate around the Linux. Now if you want to know, maybe you're just stuck, you don't know where you are, maybe you navigated into multiple directories, from one directory into the next, and you want to know, right? You can recall the commands which we ran, which is pwd. So what does this show us? The pwd shows us that we are in the DevOps directory. So it shows slash and DevOps. So we are in the DevOps directory. So to go out of the DevOps directory, we do cd ... and then we go out one step out of the directory. So now recall that we created testfile.txt in the root directory, while we created testfile2.txt in the DevOps directory. So I'll clear my terminal. Now when we do ls, we are now in the root directory. So when we do ls, we should not see the testfile2.txt. The only file we are going to see is the one that we created in our folder. So you see testfile.txt. Now why this is the way the Linux works. Only in a folder that you are currently in is the contents in there that you can see. You cannot see the contents of another folder. I'll take a pictorial example of how the Linux works, right? Linux is like you walking into a block of rooms, right? So traditionally, when you step into a room, you can only see the contents in that room, right? You're not gonna like use maybe like any kind of magical way to be able to see the contents in another room. Let's say you step into a building that is not yours, right? And for example, you were blindfolded into a particular room. When the blindfold is taken off, you are only going to be able to see the contents of the room you're in. If you want to see the contents of another room, which you could not even imagine what are the contents in that room, you would have to get out of this current room that you're in and step into the other room to be able to see the contents that are in the other room. So it's a day-to-day activity for us, right? That's why we move from one place to another to be able to see the stuffs that are there. So if we are not in the DevOps folder, we can't see the contents that are in the DevOps folder. So to see it, we would have to go into that DevOps folder, cd into DevOps folder, then do the ls-l. Then now we see the contents that are in there, and we can no longer see the contents that are in another folder. So we cd back out, and then a command that can help you stay in one place and then see the contents of a folder is the next command we will see, which is ls-l and then the name of the folder. So this is like shortcut for you to not necessarily go down into the folder to be able to list it. So now we see that we are able to see the file. So now let's look at trying to write something into a file. Okay, so for example, this file that we have created, we want to write into this file. So most times we would have an editor we will use. An editor can be Vim. Vim is an editor. They have VI and they have Nano, which are other form of editor. But yeah, you can start with Vim. We might have an error which says Vim is not installed. In some cases, Vim may not be installed, so you can try to install dependencies. So that would lead us to learning how to install dependencies. Yeah, so it says Vim command not found. So what we are going to do is to try to install Vim so that Vim can be available for us to use. So first off, this is commands to install dependencies on the server. So first off, we are going to upgrade our server to ensure that Vim will be available. So the command for Ubuntu servers, there's what is called package manager. The package manager is what helps us to install stuffs and dependencies into the server. When you're working with Red Hat server, then the package manager is yum, Y-U-M. But for Ubuntu, the package manager is apt-get. These are not very complicated stuff. You can just go onto your Google and ask what is the package manager for Ubuntu server, what is the package manager for Red Hat server, and examples like that. So apt-get update will first of all try to update. So this will update our server, pull down some latest dependencies from the repository, and then we would also upgrade the server, and then we will try to install the Vim. So we will do apt-get upgrade. So this is currently running. It says loading package list, building dependencies. We'll put -y to continue. So the advantage of this Leap Initiative Playground is while you are seeing this being done, you also have the playground with you, right? So you also side by side, you spin up the same. So you have the playground with you, right? So also side by side, you spin up this Ubuntu server, you log into it just the way I did, and then the commands that I run, you also run it, and you see that what I have at my end is what you also have at your end. So you also spin it side by side, and then you see that whatever I'm doing, you're also doing it. That's how you get hands-on practice, hands-on knowledge on what you are being taught. So few minutes, and then it will get completed. Then we can install Vim. Okay, so the upgrade has been completed. I'll clear the terminal, and then we'll do apt-get install Vim. So now we'll install the Vim. So Vim is currently installing. Y to continue. You enter Y to continue, later Y. Okay, so Vim has been installed completely. We'll clear the screen. So now we can do ls just to see our file name again, and then we can do vim test file.txt. So now we are now inside the file. So this is how we go into a file. This is very different from your normal Windows computer, where you will see the lines in the files, and then you see like maybe you're using Microsoft Word to be able to edit a file. No. So this is how it is for the Linux, and then we are in the file. So you you click on button I. You click on I. No. So you actually type I. You press your. So now you press the button I. You press I to be able to insert. So now notice here the mode will change to insert mode. So this has to change to insert mode before you are gonna be able to write. So now let us write. So we can say welcome to DevOps class by Leap Initiative. All right, so now we've written one line into our file, and then we can write two lines. We can say welcome to Kafka class by Leap Initiative. All right, so to save this file, you will press escape button. Press the escape button. You see that this insert mode has left here, meaning we are no longer in writing mode. We are now trying to save. So the command to save is you press column, then W, Q, and then apostrophe. So take note, column WQ apostrophe, and click enter, and then this is saved. So now it leads us to another command, which is a command to be able to see what has been created, a command to be able to see what we have written into a file. So that command is cat. So we want to cat this file that we created, and then we will see. Now it shows us what has been written into that file, which is welcome to DevOps class by Leap Initiative, and then line 2 is welcome to Kafka class by Leap Initiative. Okay, so we have now been able to cut and see the content of that file. So this is the command that is used to actually see contents of a file. So another command that we can look at is, maybe we want to move this file we want to copy this file from this folder right here. I'll clear my terminal. So we want to copy this file from this folder right here and then put it into the DevOps folder. So now there's a command cp. We'll do cp test file.txt, and then we'll put it into the DevOps folder. And then we can have it maintain the same name, or we can give it a different name, but in this case we'll have it maintain the same name. So when you click enter, this has been copied. So now when we go into the folder and we ls-l, we are going to expect to see two files. So here we see two files. The file has been copied into this folder, and then when we cut the file right here inside this folder, then we are going to see the contents of that file. So what if we want to remove it? We want to delete it from this folder. Clear my screen, and then the command is rm text file.txt. When we run this command, then we check, we see that it has been removed, remaining only this test file 2.txt. So now we can go back into the root folder ls-l, and we see this file because we copied it, so a copy is still here. Now let's do a command called move to move the file. Now let's do a command called move to move the file from this folder. We no longer want it to be in this root folder. We want it to be in the DevOps folder. So we'll move it. mv is the command, text file.txt, and then into the DevOps directory. So the command, if you want to understand it, is like move the file, which is the source of the file, into the destination of the file. So now if we go into the DevOps folder, we are now expected to see the two files, right? It's now here. But when we go back into the root folder and we do ls-l, we are expected to no longer see it in the root folder. Yeah, now it is no longer there in the root folder. So I'd like you to understand that in the actual class, DevOps class, we'll go much more in depth into other commands that we'll be running. So to keep this video a bit brief, this tutorial brief, to just show you the essential Linux commands that you need to know, then we just do few commands, and then in the actual classes we'll do in-depth multiple commands. So we've seen how to delete a file. Let's see how to delete a folder. So we will do rm. So the command to remove a folder, for example, let's list to C. We want to remove the DevOps folder. We want to remove this DevOps folder. So we can do rm -r and the folder name DevOps, and it has been removed. So when we do, let's clear my screen, and when we do ls-l, we no longer see it. If you look at it, we no longer see the folder in here. So the folder has been removed. So that's another command to actually delete a folder. Okay, so earlier we had to open an editor called Vim to be able to write into a file, but now let's look at some shorthand commands that helps us be able to write into a file. So now we'll create a new file, let's call it bash file or bash script .sh. So this file ls-l, this file has been created. We see it here. So now we can quickly write into this file. We can run a command called echo. We can echo hello, these are Linux, hello from DevOps, hello from DevOps, and then we will put it into the file. With this command, I'll put it into bash script.sh. We'll put it into bash script.sh. Now this has been written into the file. So when we want to see the content, we cut the file, we cut this bash script.sh, and then we see it, hello from DevOps, hello from DevOps. So if we want to remove this file, then we do rm bash script. Okay, now clear my screen, or no, I'll just list again, and we'll see that the file has been removed. See, it's no longer there. The file has been removed. So one last command that we can run to wrap up this brief crash course is we can run a command to run a script. We talked about, like, if you want to create a Python script, then you need to run it. So let's see a command to run a bash script. So what we are going to do is, first we are going to create the bash script. We are going to go into the bash script. We're going to write some code into the bash script. We are going to save it. Then we are going to set some permission on the bash script for it to be able to execute. And then we are going to execute the bash script. So first off, so we can create, let me clear my screen. So we can create the script by doing touch test bash script is a test bash script 1, for example, .sh. Now it has been created. Let's see. We see it that it has been created. So now we will do vim test bash script. So now we are going into it to write into it. So we are inside the file. Then we press button I to get into insert mode. Then now we are about to write into the bash script. So we usually start with the shebang sign, which is hash bin /sh. So $bin !bin /bash. It tells the executor that this is a bash. It should execute it with a bash executor. So now we will run a simple command called echo welcome to DevOps and Kafka class. Now this is the simple command that we have in the file. We are going to run this and save the file. To save, we do escape. You press the column WQ and then save. That WQ means write and quit, and then ! there. So now if we want to see that we actually wrote into the file, then we'll cut the file and see to confirm. So you see, right, these are the contents in the file. So now, clear. To make this file executable, there is a command that we need to run to make it executable. So it's called the change mode plus X. It means for everyone. We are going to go much more deeper in the actual class to understand what the permission levels are, how we can change the permission level for the owner of the file, for the group in which the owner is a member of, for people in the same group as the owner of the file, and then for people that are like external people that are not part of the group. So you can have different permission level so that when I create a file, maybe I don't want someone else to be able to edit that file, so I can restrict it to only me to be able to write into the file. So I can do that in Linux, so that if someone else comes into this server and finds that file, they will not have permission to be able to write into that file. So but here we are giving a permission for everyone to be able to execute this file. So test, the file name is test bash script 1. It has now been executable. So now to run this file, it's a command as a bash file. The command is /test bash. You see, now it has run. It printed out welcome to DevOps and Kafka class. So this is how to run a script. The script, inside the script, when we cut the script, you will see that what it says is for it to echo. Echo means print it out, let me see, right? So you remember we ran a test command where we sent the echo command into a file, but in this case we are saying print this out, let me see. So if I run this same command here on the terminal, I can do echo welcome James. I can do echo welcome James, and it's going to print out only welcome James. So you see it will remove the echo, because the echo is an actual Linux command, but in this case we put it in a file, in a bash file, and then we ran the bash file. So yeah, this is an example. So when we call back, we run the script and we see welcome to DevOps and Kafka class. So this gives you an idea on how to use the terminal, how to run commands on the terminal. This will make more sense when you're beginning to do some actual projects and you are needing to create files. you're needing to remove some files, you're needing to install some dependency, like if you wanted to install Python, you wanted to install maybe any version of npm into your terminal to be able to use it. So yeah, thank you for this class, and we'll watch out for the next tutorial that we are going to be having.